Good morning. It's good to be back with you this morning. I was thinking about some of the scriptures that I really do like, and one of them happens to be Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. It really is that statement of trust in the Lord with all your heart. We know that means faith, because faith is a definition trusting in God's constant love of us, his children. When you and I are willing to trust in his love and don't just have to count on our own knowledge and insight, it's amazing how often God directs our paths and in ways that we can't ever anticipate. That's sort of the interesting thing, to live long enough in life to be able to look back and see how you can connect all the dots and how God has been at work in your life, truly directing your paths in ways that you didn't necessarily see when it was all going on. I told you a couple days ago about the book that I'd read 20 years ago, No Such Thing as a Bad Day by Hamilton Jordan. And the fact that he grew up down in South Georgia, and there he would go into politics, and he would wind up helping Jimmy Carter from Plains, Georgia, be elected governor and then president. I told you about his uncle, Clarence Jordan. Well, he too lived there in Georgia, and he became a Baptist preacher, and he went and started Koinonia Farms. And Koinonia Farms was a racially integrated Christian commune in the 1940s in South Georgia. That's where he had blacks and whites coming and living together. They held all things in common. They went out and grew their crops, and everybody took what they needed. He was trying to say that segregation and prejudice were just wrong. Boy, he was way ahead of his time, and it was a hard time for Clarence and for his family. And there were many people in Americus, Georgia, that really pushed back. Well, I also wanted to tell you a little bit about another man named Millard Fuller. Millard Fuller grew up in Alabama, and when he was just a young boy, he was an entrepreneur. 6 years old, he started raising pigs, keeping books, trying to see how well he was doing. He would sell them, and he wanted to see if he made a profit. As he got just a little older, he started selling chickens and then started selling cows. I mean, this kid was an entrepreneur. So much so that when he went off to college, he went to Auburn University. There he met a man, and they became good friends, and they started selling all kinds of things together. I mean, he went out and got some land and got some old army barracks, renovated them, rented them out to students. He was incredible. By the time he was getting ready to graduate from college, he'd already made $1 million. He was making more money than most people would ever be able to make, basically at his age. By 29, he truly had made more than $1 million. He was basically set. Back in the 1950s, that was a lot of money. His goal now was the next 10 million. He'd gotten married to Linda, had a couple of kids. All this hard work, though, was taking a toll on his health. I mean, he found he wasn't sleeping at night. He had chest pains. He was always anxious. And it's when he's 29 years old that one day his wife Linda came in and said, "I really think I want a divorce." A divorce? Miller said, "I've given you everything. I've given you a house. I've given you fine cars. You have more clothes than you can fit in your closet. We have a boat. We have a ranch." And she said, "But I don't have you. You're never home. And I don't think I love you anymore. I'm going off to New York for 2 weeks. I know a pastor there. I want to go have counseling. Please do not follow me. I'll call you later." And she left. And now he was there with the kids. He had to come home really early when the babysitter was scheduled to leave. He started putting the kids to bed at night. And the kids were saying, "It's so wonderful to see you, Daddy. It's so wonderful to have you home." And he really came to realize, I'm never here. He waited about a week, and he couldn't take it anymore. He flew to New York. He went and found his wife. And they went out to dinner, and he said to her that night, "Instead of trying to make another 10 million, why don't we start looking at how to give this money away? Let's do something meaningful with our life." Linda realized there really was hope. She started to smile, and he knew we have a chance to make it. So that's what they did. They decided they were going to try to figure out how to live a life that was going to be meaningful. And so it was that they went back home and they got a car. They were going to take a road trip, take a month's vacation, something he had never done before, and now they were going to try to go up through New York and drive all over New York. But they were going to start by going through Americus, Georgia, and stopping to visit a man he had met before named Clarence Jordan. And when he saw Koinonia Farm and Clarence Jordan, they decided to settle in. They would live there for the next several years, being a part of this Koinonia Farms, seeing what Clarence Jordan was trying to do because of his faith. Millard Fuller and Linda were people of great faith. And then it was in 1969 when Clarence died. He had tried to tell Millard about this new idea, Dream for Humanity, all about building low-cost housing, that what people needed was not charity, they needed capital to be able to change their lives. Well, Millard went to the United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ. That's where they worshiped, and they sent him as a missionary to Zaire. Now it's the DRC. And there they went, and they would live for several years trying out this idea, getting supplies, helping people build their homes, no interest loans. It worked. So he came back to the United States, went to Koinonia Farms to carry out Clarence's dream, and they built 42 homes on Koinonia Farm. It took them several years. Get materials dedicated. Whatever you have to buy, it created a loan, no interest. People could afford it. It changed their lives. It worked so well that in 1976, he got together a few group of people and said, let's create this thing, not Dream for Humanity, Habitat for Humanity. And so it was started. It was amazing what happened. In the meantime, 1976, you remember a man named Jimmy Carter was being elected president, and it was Hamilton Jordan who was helping to lead that charge. Carter left office in 1980, and in 1984, Millard Fuller went right down the street to visit with Jimmy Carter and recruited him to be a part of this ministry. For the last 35 plus years, Jimmy and Rosalind have been part every single year with Habitat for Humanity. The cycle was complete there in Americus, Georgia, Plains, Georgia, and what was happening and how lives were being changed. Who could have ever imagined all these things beginning to take place, except in the mind of God? You never know how God is going to be using you. We know when we look back, God connects the dots. What I want to remind you this morning is that's happening right now, today. Those things that are happening in your life, the things that you're learning, the decisions you're making are creating those moments that one day you can look back on and see how God connected the dots. Trust not in your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. It really does give you a sense of hope. Things are going to be different on the other side. And one day you're going to look back at this period and you're going to see how God was directing your path. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy.